So here's how we got to Democrats retaining control of the Senate. It happened Saturday, late Saturday night, when the Nevada race was called for Catherine Cortez Masto, long considered one of the most vulnerable Democratic incumbents. She narrowly defeated her Republican challenger, Trump-backed Adam Laxalt, to give Democrats 50 seats, with Vice President Kamala Harris being the tie-breaking vote. Democratic incumbent Mark Kelly of Arizona gave Democrats seat number 49 when his race was called the night before, defeating another Trump-backed candidate, Blake Masters. The Senate being decided takes some of the focus away from the Georgia Senate runoff, which decided the majority back in 2020. Herschel Walker still waiting a long time now to see whether or not he wins that race. There are still votes left to count in Arizona this week. In the state's largest county, Maricopa, election officials estimate there are still up to 95,000 ballots to count in the race for governor. Over 170,000 votes remain statewide. Of those ballots, Republican Kari Lake needs nearly 60% of the vote to overtake Democrat Katie Hobbs. Last night's batch of votes favored Lake, but not enough for her to claim the lead. Lake trails Hobbs by just over 26,000 votes this morning. Of the votes left to be counted out of Maricopa County, over 70,000 are early voting ballots, which have so far favored Hobbs. So we're still waiting on the race for Arizona governor, but Kari Lake not having an easy time, as she claimed she would.
Well, it's definitely going to be tight. It's going to go all the way to the end. She got about 52% of the votes from last night's batch. She now needs to get between 58 and 60% of the vote in what comes out tonight. But, you know, she would be the last person standing in a major race that was an election denier, because voters in the 6 battleground states where Donald Trump tried to reverse the 2020 election results rejected election-denying candidates, every one of them, in this year's midterms. It's the latest sign that Americans are just saying no to Trumpism. The Washington Post writes, candidates for Secretary of State in Michigan, in Arizona, in Nevada, who had echoed Trump's false accusations, lost their contests. A fourth candidate never made it out of his May primary in Georgia. In Pennsylvania, one of the nation's most prominent election deniers lost his bid for governor, a job that would have given him the power to appoint the Secretary of State. And Wisconsin, the election-denying contender's loss in the governor's race effectively blocked a move to put election administration under partisan control. Also notable, that election-denying Republican candidate for Pennsylvania governor, he conceded last night. Doug Mastriano lost to Josh Shapiro by 14 points. Took him 5 days to acknowledge that he didn't win, but Mastriano shifted his tone about the election in his concession statement. And he said, it's difficult as it is to accept these results. There is no right course but to concede.
This is important.
Which I do. And I looked at the challenges ahead. Josh Shapiro will be our next governor. And I ask everyone to give him the opportunity to lead and pray that he leads well.
So this is another thing we didn't completely predict. I mean, the Democrats winning, election deniers losing, election deniers conceding.
Well, and look at this New York Post cover. The New York Post, deniers denied. Voters punish Trump-backed candidates.
Wow.
Deniers denied. It is extraordinary. Let's keep that up. It is extraordinary. Just extraordinary. How didn't matter what state you were in. It didn't matter what swing state you were in. If you were an election denier, the voters came out and said no to you. And you know, Jen Palmieri, I'd say it's extraordinary, but actually it's not. The American people said enough. And, you know, there are a couple of things. There were huge I'm talking about people on Twitter and are going, oh, why did people predict there might be a red wave? Well, because like 100 years of history, first of all, but also people going, well, why did they say abortion wasn't an issue? I remember you and Mika and me going, what's with all these polls before that were saying abortion was only a 5% issue? We didn't believe it, but it was one poll after another poll after another poll. But then you looked at those exit polls and two things rang true. One, abortion was really up there high. And secondly, the one that really caught my eye early Tuesday night, 80% of Americans said they had confidence in American democracy and in the political system and that their votes would be counted fairly. 80%. That's remarkable. It made a difference. People voted against Dobbs. They voted against Donald. They voted for democracy. It pretty much comes back to that. For democracy against deniers.
It is, I was in Maricopa County over the weekend, and it is, I mean, if there's anything, if there's any stat that tells you that the Republicans have got to change their tune and why you see Republican candidates conceding, it's that stat that you just said. 80% of people actually, even with 2 years of Trump and all of these Republicans saying that the election was stolen and people, a majority of Republicans in the Congress voting to overturn the presidential election, leaders in the parties making this one of their core issues, people still had faith in elections. And, Maricopa County, that Board of Supervisors there is doing heroic work every day with their press conferences, beating back the conspiracy theories, taking them on directly, saying why they're not true, just being really transparent all along the way. And, even Kari Lake, who stands out there as the most ostentatious, sort of effective in terms of her communication skills at communicating around election denying, even she, we'll see what happens if she does indeed lose, but even she is starting to back up a little bit on her rhetoric. Even she is saying well, there's incompetence. I hope it's not malice. She was more aggressive on Thursday and Friday, talking about how Trump Republican candidates aren't doing well when the vote is being counted, and maybe it's unfair because they prefer DeSantis Republicans, things like that. And even she's backing up because you know what? It's not working. It's not. This is the message. No. It is not working.
Not only is it not working, it's a toxic message. She had an opportunity to follow a conspiracy theory on another network, and she just refused to take it. She also put out a message yesterday telling her followers to be patient and to let the professionals that are doing their job finish doing their job in safety and security. I also take that as a good sign. I will say it, too, as a Baptist. We will take we love conversions. We love conversions, and if you're telling your followers to be respectful to election officials, I have a lot of friends who are election officials across America. You know what?
Take it.
Take it. You take it. Mike Allen, I